Hi, Dan Sussman from Phoenix College here to talk to you today about brainstorming, a very important pre-writing process. And pre-writing processes, I think you know, are the steps that you take that get you to the point of actually sitting down and drafting your composition. There are steps that we have to take to plan things out, and brainstorming is a good tool for that. Brainstorming is a method we use to generate ideas to write about. Let's assume for the moment that you've been given a topic for an essay or a paragraph by your instructor. Okay, you know what the big idea is, but sometimes people get stuck coming up with the details to write about. Okay, I know the topic, but what am I going to say about it? Here's what you do. You start a brainstorming practice. Put the topic that your teacher has given in front of you, and then take a short amount of time, 5 minutes, maybe even 10 minutes if you like. I would say no more than that. You can do it on your own or do this with other people. And once everybody's together, take about 5-10 minutes and write down all the thoughts that come into your head about the subject you have to write about. The idea is to create this storm going on. And you can just start writing quickly the ideas as they come up. And if you're doing this with friends, you can use a big pad of paper and write them on there. But the idea when you're brainstorming is to worry about quantity, not quality of the ideas. It's to get as many ideas on the paper as possible, no matter how silly or absurd or unworkable they might seem later on. When you're in the middle of the brainstorming process, don't stop to think about the ideas. Don't stop to criticize other people's ideas. We don't evaluate the ideas till later on. Quantity, not quality, is the hallmark of brainstorming. Well, what do we do with these ideas and how do we arrange them? I tend to think of things in two buckets, and there are variations on these methods, but I think of them in terms of doing a visual graphic organizer, something works well with people who think well in terms of pictures, and I also think in terms of lists for people who work better with words. Let's look at the visual one first. Now, I have to tell you, the best way to do this when you're working with creating an idea map is, instead of doing this on paper right away, once you have your ideas, you might want to put them on Post-its or little scraps of paper, which you can maneuver around on a bulletin board or a wall or a desktop, because you're going to want to move things around, and it's a lot easier to do that if you have something that you can physically pick up and relocate, instead of having to erase and draw a lot of lines that you might not need later on. So let's assume for the moment that these bubbles that you're going to see showing up on these slides are Post-its or perhaps scraps of paper that I can manipulate around. So I've been given a composition to do on what's an important goal for me. How will I achieve it? Time to start thinking. Time to start brainstorming. Well, I sit down and take about 5-10 minutes, and some of the things that I come up with are, finish school, get a better job, search for jobs, prepare a resume, learn a new language, take language classes, watch a lot of English television. Okay, those are just some random thoughts that have occurred to me. We'll come back to them later. The other method of brainstorming is, instead of doing bubbles and putting things up on scraps of paper, make a list. Make a list. Some people just deal with words better than pictures. Okay, so what's an important goal for me? How will I achieve it? Finish school, get a better job, and so on and so forth. The content is the same. The method I'm dealing with it is just a little bit different. All right. Next step. I've got all this information, all these ideas that I've generated. Now, what I'm going to start doing is looking for ideas that pop out of my list or my bubbles to see what if there's some trends and how they connect. So review your brainstorming list or your idea map and see if you can develop a main idea out of what you've put up. Ask yourself the following questions. What are the connections between some of the ideas on my map or list? What major ideas have the most subpoints? We'll talk about that in a moment. What ideas do I feel most strongly about? And do my ideas respond well to the prompt that my teacher has given me? All right. I'm going to go back to the bubbles now. You've got these scraps of paper or bubbles or what have you for your idea map, and they're up there in front of you. How do we arrange them to start making sense of them? Well, one way to do that, a good way to do that, is start to connect them into a map. Okay, finish school. All right, I move that bubble close to my central idea, and I draw a line between them, like a spoke going to a central hub. Another idea, get a better job. Okay, well, that's kind of a general idea, and it ties directly to the central idea again. And then search for jobs. Well, get a better job. Searching for a job will get me a better job. That ties nicely to the idea of getting a better job. So I pull that in close to get a better job, and I draw a spoke between those two. Prepare a resume. Well, that's something you do to get a better job. So I draw a spoke between resume and get a better job. I'm starting to see some connections here between my ideas. Learn a new language. Well, I mentioned taking language classes as another possibility. Well, they start pulling together nicely. Watch a lot of English television. Well, that's something I can do to improve my English. So that ties into learn a new language. Everything starts to tie together. You start to see connections between these ideas you've come up with in your brainstorming. The next thing I want to do, as I said, is look for main ideas that you seem to have a number of these subpoints for. Okay, there's that whole language issue. Maybe that's something I want to focus on in my composition. I suppose I could go up to the get a better job and concentrate on that being an important goal. You could argue for that as well, but let's just for argument's sake take the language issue. So then I have to create a topic sentence, and I come up with this. Being able to speak multiple languages is one of my longtime goals, so I must practice speaking and listening. All this brainstorming has given me a main idea, and it's probably giving me some supporting ideas as well. And if it hasn't, I can continue the brainstorming process and focus on the idea of learning a different language and see what I can come up with. Finally, don't forget, when you're brainstorming, you are not locked in by your maps and lists. Your tools should work for you. You don't work for your tools. So, as new ideas occur to you, use them. But remember, brainstorming is an important step to go through. Trying to write a composition without planning or using a planning tool like brainstorming is going to lead you to some heartache, unnecessary work, and take you down some writing dead ends. Spare yourself the time and aggravation and go through the brainstorming process.